from the 915 to H-Town, from the Panhandle Plains to the Valley, and everywhere in between. This is the 50/50 Podcast, powered by College Promoters USA. Join me, Hector Cano, as we cover the Texas high school club and college soccer landscape, along with an inside look at the college soccer recruiting scene. The 50/50 Podcast is a platform about the people and for the people who are dedicated to the beautiful game.
College Promoters USA, founded and located in San Antonio, operates as the only family-owned college recruiting company in Texas that brings a truly professional, local, and face-to-face approach to area high school student athletes and their families. If your son or daughter is serious about college athletics, call them at 210-494-6363 or visit collegepromotersusa.com anytime. College Promoters USA, the best investment a parent can make in their high school student athletes.
Here we go. It's another edition of the 50/50 Podcast, powered by College Promoters USA, our proud partners. College Promoters USA, they are America's premier college prep program and high school student athlete marketing service since 1997. Located locally in the San Antonio area, you can find them in the Ventura Plaza Shopping Center, but you can also find them on social media, on Twitter at SATX Recruiting, as well as on Instagram at College Promoters USA. You can also get more information on them at their website at collegepromotersusa.com. My next guest, he is really a coach that needs no introduction, but I will introduce him anyway. He's the legendary coach of the Texas A&M Aggies, the head women's soccer coach, Coach G. Guerrieri. Coach, welcome.
Howdy, and thank you. Thank you, Hector. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. Pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for your accessibility and for your time. We'll try to make this as painless as possible, and we'll have some fun with you. So grateful to have you here, Coach. So for those who maybe it's whether it's a younger player, younger parent, a younger coach, right, up and coming coach, who may not know as far as your history, your story, your involvement in the game. Just briefly tell us, kind of give us a Cliff Notes version of where you've been and how you got here.
Well, I guess start where I am now. I'm about to start my 30th year as the head coach at Texas A&M, and that obviously doesn't just happen. I was born in Chicago. Was adopted by the Guerrieri family. Soon moved down to Richardson, Texas, in the early 70s when soccer was just starting to kind of get a little bit of a foothold. Dallas Tornado were playing. Lamar Hunt, obviously, who's had such a huge influence on soccer, was the owner. And a big part of what they were about was growing the game and trying to promote the game through a lot of community service and a lot of things that they were doing with kids. So some of those players and the coach Ron Newman, who ended up coaching me as a matter of fact, but a lot of those guys were heroes of mine. Bobby Moffitt, Kyle Rote Jr., Roy Turner, Kenny Cooper. Those were the icons in my soccer world growing up as a kid in Richardson. Then went on, played at Pierce High School under legendary coach Richard Manjoli. And Richard's Pierce teams were the first teams to win state championships in the UIL when that finally came around, which was after I had 2 years after I had graduated. Had a great club career playing with a club at that time, Sparta, which was the top club in North Texas at the time and really the state at the time. It evolved into several other clubs, over time, and who knows where you would take the DNA of that right now. But a lot of had a chance to play for and win some state cups, played in regionals, played with a lot of guys who went on to play in college and played professionally. Then I went to the University of Tulsa, where I knew I wanted to be a coach. I just didn't know what level I wanted to coach at. So studied physical education, played for a German named Walter Schnorr, graduated in '85 and started my coaching career really there at Tulsa as his assistant as I was finishing up doing my student teaching and finishing up my undergrad work. So from there, then I kind of started my path. When I was about a sophomore in college was when the light bulb came on to me that the college level was something that was the level I wanted to be at, because my college experience, I had a great college experience, and still really love Tulsa to this day as a great town, but also the ability to be in a city that had an NASL team at the time with the Tulsa Roughnecks, but seeing how cool my experience was, and all the changes that go on in your life especially when you're away from home for the first time, and kind of growing up, and and the experience I had was being with some great teammates, and really having a super playing experience. I went to my coach and said, "Hey, what I want to do is I want to do what you're doing, and I'd love to stick around as as assistant coach and learn from you." And he's like, "Well, you're about to start your sophomore year. Let's finish up our playing career first." So I did. Had basically the equivalent of a cup of coffee at the professional level. Wasn't good enough to be a pro. This was in the days between the NASL and MLS starting in '96. So kind of soccer was in the wilderness a little bit at the time, right. And that's when I started my path. I went from there to assistant men's coach at Rollins College, and the athletic director brought me into his office when I was there at Rollins, which is in Winter Park, Florida, Division II school. Said, "Hey, for an extra $1,000, how about if you coach our women's team?" And I was like, $1,000, you got it, I'm in. So that's when I first started to coach women, and and that whole experiment of what's the difference between coaching men and coaching women, and what's the learning experience like, all those things. That's when that laboratory kind of started for me. That was in '86. Went from there to North Texas. Was when UNT had a men's team, really good men's team, as a matter of fact, under Richard Lowe. Dr. Richard Lowe was his assistant on the men's side, and then got the opportunity to go and take over the Hardin Simmons program as both the men's and women's head coach in '88 and '89. And that was a unique experience because the men were Division I, NCAA Division I. The women were dual NCAA Division I and NAIA at the time. Oh, wow. So we could recruit Division I players and play in the playoffs in the NAIA. And our team went all the way. We lost in the national championship game in '88, '89. So it was that was again a further getting my feet wet on coaching on the women's side. Then went from there to coach at Richland College. Well, actually, I left Hardin Simmons only because at the time I was there was when the school made the big decision that athletics was going to be one of the things that really was going to save the school, because the school was trying to compete with other Division I schools in every sport, and it just wasn't it wasn't clicking. They weren't a team that was going to be able to do that in basketball, or we didn't have a football program at the time. So their decision was to go from Division I to Division III, bring back football, which had been dormant for about 40 years. And with football comes 150 paying players, a band, the pom-pom team, the bell ringers, all the things that go ancillary items that go along with having a college football program. And for me, that wasn't Division III wasn't my path. That wasn't the way I wanted to go. I was 25 at the time. So I left there, went back to North Texas for a season, and then took over the Richland College program for Andy Marcinko when he went on to Rhodes to take over the Rhodes program. So I was the head men's coach and the head women's coach. Was the director of coaching for Flame Soccer Club, coached the under-19 women's team for Sting Soccer Club, and then came in contact with one of my true mentors, a guy named Tom Durkin. So Tom Durkin, who was a U.S. coaching instructor at the time, was the state coach for North Texas. And so worked out that I said, well, what, I'll help you with the ODP program, which we did for a while, and then kind of made a deal that I would help him with all the ODP teams as the goalkeeper coach, if he wanted to come and coach with me at the college level as my assistant at Richland. So he was like, so I don't have to deal with any kind of administration, any recruiting, any of that stuff. I just come and can coach. I was like, yeah, that's about the deal. So him coming in was a terrific learning experience. He was a Walt Chiswick's disciple. He went on to coach in MLS, coach with He was the one who kind of put the IMG program on its feet in Bradenton later, and is still coaching in that level and in Florida, and just one of the best soccer minds in the United States. So was there for a couple of years, and then that's when Texas A&M announced that they were going to go from being a non-scholarship, what they called kind of a varsity 2 program, so they were going to go ahead and invest fully into the program as a scholarship program. So I was one of the hundreds of people that applied. I was the lucky one who got the job in 1993, and as they say, the rest is history. It's became quite a march. The first year I think we were 15-3-1. We were the number 1 first-year program in the country. At that time, there was only about 56 Division I women's teams. Right. Now there's 348 Division I women's teams. So we got in at a starting point. At the time, SMU was absolutely ruling the roost. Alan Kirk was the coach there, good friend. And so the first thing that we wanted to do was, we wanted to find a way to challenge for them, because my goal was to be the best. And I was now at a university that could attract anybody for the academic prowess that we have, and then also just if anyone's been around Aggies, we're all 100% brainwashed. This is the greatest place on earth. So we could attract a lot of people, primarily starting out in the state of Texas, right. And then kind of go beyond that. So at that time, I was also working as one of the directors of Soccer Plus goalkeeper camps with Tony Dicko, who was, along with Durkin, became another one of my big mentors. Mm-hmm. And so under Tony, I was working every summer for probably about 7 years, and really, became kind of enamored with his style and what he was doing. The whole thing of catch them being great instead of berating players, but finding ways to see the positives and what was going on with them. This was right around the time in '91 that he and Anson Dorrance took our women's national team for the first time to the World Championships in China, came back as world champions, and then Tony became the next coach for the next cycle and for the Olympics and all that. So I stayed pretty well connected with him and all of women's soccer as it was really kind of getting its stride as it was right. going through, and then obviously through '99 and what happened through winning the World Cup and the explosion of what girls soccer and women's soccer has been since those times. So I've been really fortunate that I've been on the ground floor of a lot of the things going on with soccer in the state of Texas, women's soccer around the country, and I've been around some just phenomenal people, and like I say, I'm the luckiest guy. I've been in a lot of places that have all kind of worked positively for whatever the next step was going to be.
Right. Yeah. So many great names you dropped there, Coach, and a lot of great people that have had massive impact on the game. Excuse me. One that resonates with me personally is the late great Tony Dicko, who you just mentioned. As he was my trainer. I got to train with him for when I went through my goalkeeper level 3 course, and I took I took so much from that, from that time that I got to spend with him our entire course. So glad to hear that. Thank you for that. So
really neat guy, very unselfish.
Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't know that he's not, if you came up and met him, you wouldn't know that he's,
no.
Hall of Fame, World Cup winning coach, Olympic gold medal winning coach. He's just, just a regular guy, and that openness that he had, I think, is for a lot of us who were lucky enough to be, in his orbit. Hopefully it rubbed off on a lot of us.
Yeah. He was one of the very first that I was really exposed to that really understood relationships and how he can tap into that to motivate and get the best out of a player. So out of anyone he was working with. So for sure. So we go back to 93. Did you ever imagine that it would become what it is now in terms of Texas A&M soccer? We talk about that culture, that brand, could you have imagined that it'd be what it is now? What were your thoughts going into it?
Well, when I came and interviewed, at the time, A&M and a lot of athletic departments around the country had like a men's and a women's side. And Texas had just lost a Title IX lawsuit that was going to force them to have to start some women's programs. And A&M tried to get ahead of that to just get started with, our program and really put more money into softball and some of the other programs here. So at the time, Lynn Hickey was our women's basketball coach. Now, Lynn went on to become the athletic director at UTSA. She was the one who brought football to UTSA. She's now the athletic director up at Eastern Washington. And so when I was trying to appeal to her to hire me, I was like, listen, the way we are going to play is, we are going to be a kind of a showtime on grass. We're going to be fast. We're going to play fast. We're going to think fast. We're going to be in the community. We're going to be doing things that are going to bring only positive lights on the program, but also on university. And so initially, my first goals were just to be accepted as a viable program amongst our peers within the Texas A&M family. Now, again, we've gone on to be the most successful program over those years, but it's really kind of came down to, what we want to do is our goal is to be the best. It's to recruit the best. It's to for me to surround myself with the best people, and to kind of put it in motion that we can year in and year out be one of those teams that are competing for a national championship. And fortunately, things have worked out that way. We've been ranked in the national top 10 every year since 1995. And, obviously it's not the same team that we had in 1995 as we have right now, but, a lot of the fundamental basic tenets that I wanted to start the program with are still here, but they've evolved over time. And as anything happens, everything is fluid, and everything you try to do is built towards lasting for as long as possible.
What do you feel has led to that? One of the hardest things, what I've always told my players, my student athletes, is as in life, one of the hardest things to do is to be consistent, right? Day in and day out, year in and year out. What do you feel has led to that consistency, and how has that led to becoming a tradition?
Well, I guess consistency starts with me. I mean, I've been here for 30 years. So learning every year from what's happened in the past. My associate head coach, Phil Stevenson, who is, I would put up against any coach in the United States as far as acumen, as far as his style, his knowledge, and what he can bring players to be able to do. He's been with me since '99, and so though that has been, and Lori Stevenson, who's his wife, has also been with us the same amount of time. So that kind of culture that we have within the three of us. And then behind the scenes, Kurt Magnuson, who's our director of operations, has also been with me since the 90s. That's the base for what we do. And the other people that we bring into the program are, we bring into not to be replacements for things that we're doing, but also to be supplements to what we do. And I think it's important that people recognize, and my leadership style is such that I want to surround myself with people who can do things that kind of cover my blind spots. But at the same time, I want to empower those people to be able to make decisions. And to be able to be the very best that they can be. So, like I said, Phil Stevenson is as good as it gets, and the consistency that he and I have had with the way that we look at players, the way that we look at the game, the way that, we want the game to be fun. And the first thing I told the team when I got here was, I want you guys to really have fun while you're playing for us. Now, it's a hell of a lot more fun to win than lose. So we're going to do everything we possibly can to win within the rules. But first and foremost is we are here to enjoy. I want you guys to leave with smiles on your faces. And I want you to come back with your families with smiles on your faces and proud of what you accomplished, but proud of what you're still a part of. And so for example, we'll have a 30-year reunion this October for all the girls, in my mind, they're eternally 19 years old. But these women now who are in their 40s and 30s and 20 somethings, coming back with their families and with their kids and that's been for me the mystery that I didn't think about at the early days. We didn't know about Facebook or anything like that in those days either. But when Mother's Day comes around and you see my girls with their kids, or Christmas cards, or different life moments that I get a chance to see, them taking part in, really, it brings a lot of satisfaction to myself and obviously to the rest of us here in the program.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. So I fully understand that when you say they're eternally young, right? Your players, even years later. Yeah, I completely understand that.
Unfortunately, I look in the mirror and that guy isn't young anymore. But
yeah.
the fact that I was hired by Texas A&M when I was 29 is pretty remarkable, because that wouldn't happen now. So that's something that, again, I talk about being so lucky and so fortunate. That was one of the things that has been able to, now I've spent more than half my life here as part of this community and part of what we do within the university.
Right. Yeah. Well, preparation and timing are so big, Coach, right? That's what leads to opportunity, as you know. So yeah. So we start looking here. You've obviously, the game has changed tremendously just across the board, internationally, nationally, at the collegiate level. We start surveying the land here, the college soccer landscape. What are your thoughts from what you can share? What are your thoughts just in general on the transfer portal and maybe just where you think it's headed? I know there was recent news with the board of directors and the transformation committee and kind of forwarding results or potential results, findings to the D1 Council about there may be changes in the works down the road. Obviously, you can't speculate or comment on that, but thoughts on just how the transfer portal what it has become, where it lies, and maybe where it's headed.
Well, I can quote you what our basketball coach said, because when, as we were coming through the pandemic, was right around the time that the transfer portal became a thing, and then at the same time was when all of a sudden NIL came around, and Buzz Williams, who's our men's basketball coach, said, "Look, gentlemen, we are no longer coaching amateurs. This is now turned to be a very professional model," and he's absolutely right in the way that's gone. Now, obviously, 99% of what is going on in the changing of the landscape at the college level is because of money and because of football, which drives that money truck into the university. So as soccer goes, we've got to kind of hang on. And I tell you, as someone who played men's college soccer and a program now, the Tulsa men's program is one of the best in the country. And what Tom McIntosh has done with that program is just amazing. And I worry about programs like that, not necessarily that one specifically, but non-revenue sports on the men's side. I have some real fear and trepidation about what could happen to those programs as more money gets moved into the football players pot. You can grow the pie, but that pie still stays based on whatever your school is about. It's going to be pretty similar. So, there's going to be some tough decisions that are going to be made, I fear, going forward by a lot of universities. And again, what a small private school does compared to what a behemoth state school does, to a religious affiliated school, to a Division II school, all those. I mean, those are unique unto themselves, and those will be tough decisions that those people have to make. On the women's side, I think I want to think that we'll be okay because of Title IX. They have to balance the numbers in some form or fashion with what's going on. So I think on the women's side we're okay, but I do have some fears about what's going on the men's side or what could happen on the men's side, and that's just waking up and worrying more than really seeing things that are happening at the moment.
Yeah, and that kind of partially springboarded into part of my next question is, you hit on NIL, we talked about the portal, and all of this unfolded during the mass complexity that was the pandemic, or is technically still the pandemic, if you will. But on top of all of that, you now have the craziness, the chaos that is the ongoing the realignment piece, right? That we're seeing right now, that's unfolding currently.
Yeah.
From that perspective, from the realignment perspective, as it relates to, Texas A&M soccer, the SEC, what are your thoughts on that part in terms of just the college soccer landscape?
Like I said, I'm a pretty lucky guy. I think the move by Texas A&M back in 2011, 2012 to make the jump from the Big 12 to the SEC was, which I thought, I worried about it because I didn't know that our football team would be able to survive at that level. I knew soccer, we were going to go from kind of the top of one conference to the top of another conference, right, which played out. But I didn't know they had a freshman named Johnny Manziel over on the other side of the tracks practicing. Things kind of have worked out pretty well from that point on. So, I was absolutely wrong that was a mistake, because that was, they talk about it being a 100-year decision for Texas A&M, and it was a hugely beneficial decision for the Aggies to make that move.
Right.
And you see the change in the landscape now of what's happened from that time 10 years ago to where we are right now, as far as, the size of the university. We went from it being about 42,000 students. Texas was somewhere in the range of 50 or 51. Now you look at it, and it's changed. So now Texas A&M is at like 63,000 students. Texas is still the same place. Again, they're landlocked and they have other challenges. Right. But as growing up in Texas, I never thought that would be allowed. That A&M would be unleashed to be able to really go out and start to, really assert ourselves and realize the potential that the university has, and obviously that the athletic department has. So it's been, so when you look at the landscape and people talking about there being, for the most part, in talk radio and stuff, but being two mega conferences, it's pretty nice that we're in one of those mega conferences right now, and have a firm foundation for going forward, because we've got some great leaders above me. We've got some incredible alumni that are absolutely 100% all in on the university, and the university continues to get more and more and more competitive academically. It's already, seen as the top public academic school in the state, and now it continues. All the programs are just one after the other, raising in the different rankings around the country. So it's like, hang on, because this rocket's going fast, and it's been really neat to see. And it's looking forward. It's hard to see what is exactly going to happen. Again, all of this stuff is happening above my pay rate, but it's some of it is, like I said, is a little bit scary, but other parts of it are pretty exciting.
Yeah. So, we forward to this upcoming season, to the 2022 season, Coach. Give us a little bit, kind of a look behind the scenes briefly, just plans, you and your staff, preseason plans as you get going. When do you get going? Have your new incoming recruits, have they arrived already on campus? What has you excited about this incoming class?
Well, I mean, during the pandemic, let's talk about pandemic and how a little bit of that affected my program, especially. But it was the first time that we played in both the fall and the spring, and you'll hear a lot of scuttle about the men's soccer wanting to do that permanently. That's the model that they want to play in. Well, we lived it. And fortunately for us, Greg Sankey and the SEC had the vision to say, hey, now we can play in the fall. We can make this safe. We can take the proper steps to make sure that these student athletes are safe. So we played our SEC season in the fall of 2020. And for us, it was pretty cool, because we played one game a week. Now, we didn't get to play anybody outside the conference, but we were able to play one game a week, focus purely on that, had a great rhythm to it. We won the league again. And then in the spring, when the other 25 conferences that didn't play came on, and we were able to focus on playing non-SEC games with the idea of trying to get into a reduced size NCAA tournament. We were number 7 seed going into that, and made another long run to the Elite Eight, which the national championship game wasn't played until I think the 13th of May. And then 3 weeks, we gave the girls about 21 days off, and then they were right back at it. And last year the wheels fell off a little bit because of injuries and just not recovering from the year before.
Right, the ripple effect.
So this past year for us this past spring for us was a really, really important year, because it's the first time since 2019 that we had a real developmental season in the spring, which for us, our saying has always been, and Phil brought up years ago, is, we win championships in the spring. We just pick up the trophies in the fall, because all the development, all the individual effort, all the focus on the individual pieces of the puzzle are done in the spring when you have a chance to really put your time into it. Whereas in the spring of 2021, our emphasis was on who's next and what do we have to do to beat them. And there wasn't this individual development component. And it didn't happen the spring of 2020, because March 6th was the last time we saw the players, and then they left for spring break and didn't come back until August. So, I asked the players this past, this spring, like, who has, raise your hand if you've had a developmental spring before. And there was only 3 of our seniors that raised their hands. So we're like, ooh, okay. So we've got 3 classes that are going to go through this for the first time. So a big part of our goals for that was we wanted to go through, we had most of our players were there. Of our 6 incoming freshmen, 4 of them graduated high school early and were already with us in the spring, which has become something we've been doing for about the past 12 years. So those players now are firmly entrenched in the culture, in the socially, physically, emotionally, they're part of the team. And so we wanted to come through and know how we were going to play when the players arrived on August 1st. And so that if we had to play a game a week later, that we could step out on the field and play. We knew the system we were going to play. We knew the roles people were going to be in. And for the most part, that's where we are right now. So, I'm really looking forward to. We've got our other 2 freshmen who are now here, who just reported for their new student conferences this week. 4th of July time, and now most of the team is here and are coming back. They'll start training together and getting themselves ready, so that when we get here in August, we feel like we have a pretty good grasp of who we have and who we are going forward. So, the players that we've got. Sydney Becerra, who was the Gatorade Player of the Year last year in high school, led Flower Mound to the state championship. Georgia Leb, another player with Solar up in Dallas. Carolyn Calzada, who is a familiar name for Aggies. Her brother was our quarterback that beat Auburn and beat Alabama last year. She comes in. She is, if not the fastest, she's one of the top 3 fastest players on a very fast team. Caroline Niffen, who's another speedster out of the Dallas area, played with DKSC and FC Dallas through her developmental time. And then the 2 new ones are Bella Lister, who's a Canadian youth national teamer, goalkeeper out of Vancouver, and Eloise Deschanel, who is from the IMG Academy in Florida. So players who are accustomed to winning, which is something that we want to have in the team, and players who now we think are going to be able to step in and contribute right away. On top of that, we get our forwards back. So I was without 7 forwards last year at different times of the season. So we get Lainey Carroll back, who scored in every game we had in the spring. We get Anderson Williams back, another Canadian national teamer, who redshirted last year. We get Miley Hayes back, who's our leading scorer. We get Mia Pante, who's our leading assist player. We get the defensive SEC Defender of the Year in Carlina Sample back for her 5th year. So it really is it's a very talented team, and it's a really tight team. The culture within the team is really healthy. It's a fun group to be around. Really some great young women on this team.
Wow, that is an abundance of riches. And then on top of that, one of the things I wanted to highlight, I wanted to mention and commend you on, you and your staff as well, is you also get a new volunteer assistant coach in my guy, Coach Ahmad Brown, who comes from the defending national champion, the Florida State Seminoles, who will be your volunteer assistant coach, and also a big fan of his work on the performance analysis side, but also the fact that he's a fellow veteran, fellow combat veteran, and big fan of his work, and want to commend you and your staff for bringing him on.
Well, we think Ahmad is going to is like a next generation type of injection into the program. Number one, like you said, he's an Army vet. So the first time I met him, I picked him up at his hotel. He had a backpack. He packed a backpack. He somehow got away with that. I would have 3 suitcases, and the guy's got, in a knapsack, is able to live off the land, I guess.
Well, we won't hold the Army part against him, Coach. Okay, we won't hold that against him.
Well, thank you again for your service too with the Air Force. But
Yeah.
Ahmad is comes to us from Florida State, where he worked with Mark Krikorian as their main analyst. Did the same thing for Becky Burley at Florida the years before that. He's from Florida. So for us to be able to bring him in as a coach, he's also going to be working locally with the club that I run, the boys club that I run, the Cavalry, and helping those boys, kind of tutoring those boys on how to use video and how to use things to promote themselves and to help them in the kind of the next step for going beyond. But also we'll be tutoring the coaches within the club on how to use video analysis to share information with their players, share information with their families. But he is a first and foremost, we've been really lucky with the volunteer coaches that we've had in the program. Nathan Kogut, who was our most recent volunteer coach, now is the head coach at Lamar. Wally Crittenden was a volunteer coach for us. He went on to be the head coach at Stephen F. Austin, now is associate athletic director. Scott Champ was a volunteer with us, went on to be the assistant coach at Princeton. Mary Grace Schmidt went on to Pepperdine. So we've had some remarkable people that have been with us, and it's neat that they've been able to use this as a real big stepping stone to going on to bigger and really fruitful futures for themselves. And I have no doubt. Now I hope Ahmad sticks around for a few years, because he's going to promote our team up a little bit more. I think he's going to help our players even more with the way that they look at the game and the way that they look at the way that they play. And the whole thing with winning is playing to your strengths. So a big part of playing to your strengths is knowing your strengths and knowing the things that you do that are special, and some of those KPIs that can help you hit on those marks. And he's going to do a remarkable job on that. But whereas in Florida State and Florida, he wasn't on the field. Now he'll get a chance to be on the field and actually bring his knowledge to the players and actually be able to coach them instead of just being up in the booth for analysis.
Yeah, definitely revolutionizing the game and where it's headed for sure. So, what has you? We talked about that your returning players as well, but what has you and your staff? What has you maybe the most excited about this upcoming season?
Well, I think that just the team itself, the collection of players is, I know it sounds cliche, but it really is. It is a fun group to be around. We laugh all the time, that we wake up every day and come to recess. It really is the way is with these, every team, if you think about teams that you played on, a lot of times you'd be like, yeah, that was great. But there was that one guy that was a real pain in the,
Right.
We really don't have that. It really is the culture that we have within the team is player led. It's coach supported for sure. And we try to guide them in the right directions around any kind of landmines that could be out there. But it starts with the players, and the accountability that the players have with each other it's really neat to see. It's they judge themselves at the end, they judge themselves at the end of every practice. They give themselves scores on 1, 2, or 3, 3 being the highest, on the energy that they put into it, the focus that they put into it, the technical level that they played with, all these things. And, and they're very hard on them. They're much harder on themselves than we are. We oftentimes will say, listen, I know you couldn't possess the ball there, but we put you in a situation where you were playing 11v11 in a 20 by 20 grid. That's hard to keep possession in. It wasn't about that. So think about what you guys were able to do instead of what you weren't able to do. And a lot of times they're like, okay, we'll give ourselves a 2 then on that one. Like, okay, you guys can keep possession in a sardine can, and you're still pretty hard on yourself. So those types of things, the fact that it starts with the players and it kind of runs through that, and the enthusiasm that the players have, it rubs off on the coaches. I mean, we're obviously enthusiastic about it. This is what we do, but them coming to every day with a smile on their face and really being genuinely happy to be around each other. We work a lot on preventing cliques from happening, which in girls soccer can be a real problem. And the players are a biggest part of doing a lot of those things that prevent those cliques from happening. And just, I mean, I can't say enough about the level of human that we've been able to attract here to the A&M program.
Such great stuff. And I guess for the coaches that may be out there listening, Coach, one little hint maybe that you can give them, or a tad bit of advice on, when you say you work on actively working on preventing the cliques, what's a way from the coaching staff perspective, from your perspective, what's a way that you engage the players with that?
Well, a lot of it comes from the players from top down, being from a captain's down and focusing on these types of things. But it starts even when the girls arrive. I mean, if we have players who have been playing together their whole life, we'll try to split them up as roommates. I mean, remember years ago, North Texas and South Texas girls were coming onto the team, and they were always the teams that were the best players on the teams that were meeting for championships. So I put the captains of the two teams as roommates and they were, as 11-year-olds, they were ready to kill each other. And then years later, they're in each other's weddings. So those are the types of things, as far as just help the girls who come from out of state. We try to room those with girls in state, helps them with the language, helps them with the culture. It gives the out of staters kind of a surrogate family on game weekends, so that they can go around with other folks when their parents can't make it to the games all the time. So those little things of just trying to take down those barriers that you could be these are this club, and this is this club, and this is this club. Right. We try to blur those lines as much as we possibly can, and just the more we show initially, hey, you're around some great people. I know you were kicking each other for the last 10 years, but these are some great people who are going to help you to be better. Those little things are really good, because we've had girls who have gone on recruiting trips. They were recruited by everybody, where all the people are really nice until they find out that you play the same position as them. And then all of a sudden you got the cold shoulder. And that really isn't the way it is here. Our girls are smart enough to recognize that if someone's being recruited to come and play for Texas A&M, they're probably one of the best in the world at what they do, and they're going to help me to achieve my goals and for me to achieve my dreams. So blurring those lines and taking away those barriers, is something that has been really, really successful for us.
Yeah. Awesome. Great stuff. So as we start transitioning here, Coach, towards our second segment, leave you with one final question here, kind of put you on the spot here just a little bit maybe, but how would you finish this sentence? The 22 season for the Texas A&M Aggies will be a success if...
when the team, I think we'll be a success. We're going to be a success when the team takes the field, because the team is prepared. I think preparation is the key to success. Having the problems mostly solved before you step out on the field is one of the best ways to make sure that it's a successful year. Obviously, health will be a big part of it, because that was a big problem for us last year, because we do play arguably one of the toughest schedules in the country every year. We don't duck anybody from outside the conference, and of course in the conference we have a target on our back every weekend. So keeping our team healthy, but also just stepping out with the confidence that we know that we are prepared and can kind of take the training wheels off and run. I think we'll be pretty successful.
Yeah, I think of a quote when you say that, and preparation so big. Think of well, there's variations of the quote, but the Navy SEALs had it, they said it so well from the standpoint of you don't rise to the level of the situation or expectations. You sink to the level of your training, right? And
right.
So true. So awesome. Well, that's going to do it for the first segment, Coach. We know you're going to stick around. Second segment, we'll have some fun with you, and don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsor.
College Promoters USA, founded and located in San Antonio, operates as the only family-owned college recruiting company in Texas that brings a truly professional, local, and face-to-face approach to area high school student athletes and their families. As the lead sponsor and proud supporter of the 50/50 podcast, alongside Coach Hector Cano, College Promoters is proud to be elevating its support for the college soccer recruiting process more than any other service in the country. If your son or daughter is serious about competing in college soccer, call College Promoters USA directly at 210-494-6363 or visit collegepromotersusa.com anytime. College Promoters USA, the best investment a parent can make in their high school student athlete.
And we're back with Coach G. Guerrieri, the head women's soccer coach of the Texas A&M Aggies. Also, one quick shout out I wanted to mention, someone who's been a supporter of the podcast as of late, Hill Country Engraving, located in the greater San Antonio area up in Spring Branch. Any customs banners, stickers, and signs. They serve all of Comal County, Bexar County as well. So look them up. John Litow, I believe, is the owner. Yeah, and they're located off of 306 in Spring Branch. So Hill Country Engraving, again, for any custom banners, stickers, and signs. So, all right, Coach, you ready? Dive in, Counteract segment, have some fun with you, throw you some random off-the-wall questions. I know you'll do great.
We'll see.
All right, first one. Any game day, I love asking this one. This is as a coach, of course. These are all as a coach, but I love asking this one to coaches. Any game day superstitions or rituals?
Yeah, I mean, my players oftentimes have a hard time understanding this. One of my coaching heroes is Nolan Richardson, who was a great basketball coach for Arkansas. He was the basketball coach when I was in school at Tulsa, and one of the things that he did that I thought was a great idea. My players might not think it's such a great idea, but on game days, up until I changed to step out with the team, I mean, I'm usually wearing the other team's colors in some form or fashion. So, we're playing LSU. I'll have a purple shirt. I'll wear a purple shirt to lunch. Same thing if we're playing Ole Miss, it'll be red, or it'll be, we're playing against North Carolina, we'll have a baby blue shirt on. I don't have much orange in my wardrobe, but we find alternate colors that can go along with things. So I had a lot of players who, like Jimena Lopez, who Mexican national team, it's like, Coach, that the team we're playing, they're that color. I go, yeah, I know. That's it would kind of fill around. I go, this keeps my focus on that. This is who we're gonna take care of tonight, and it's just a way for me to go through the whole day, kind of prepared for what we're going to see a little bit later on. And if they look at me and they want to kill me because I'm wearing it, cool. Maybe that'll go a little bit forward to the game that night.
Right. Awesome. Yeah. Big fan. Obviously very familiar with Nolan Richardson, as he's from the same hometown in El Paso. So big legend, definitely a big legend in El Paso. So, all right. Strangest thing in your refrigerator right now?
Dog food.
That's a first. That's
Yeah.
a first.
So
All right.
I have a 15-year-old beagle who she has become rather finicky over her years, and so now she's really only able to eat soft dog food. So there's a can of dog food with foil over the top of it for Penny to eat later on.
Yeah, I've asked this question a handful of times now. I think that is now our front runner. That has to be our front runner now, dog food. So, all right. All right. Last song you downloaded. Phone, at home, on the tablet, in the office. Last song
you know what? My wife is a music person in our family, and so I downloaded from one of her Spotify things, Willie Nelson song. I think it was.
There you go.
Don't let your babies be cowboys, or whatever that song is.
Yeah.
Again, not something that I'm changing all the time. I like familiarity, and that was I was recently in San Antonio at the JW Marriott for a big 12th Man Foundation weekend and fundraising weekend. And the guy I played in the golf tournament, and the guy who was with, he had a big Willie Nelson playlist that he was playing. So I was like, okay, I'll listen to the Redheaded Stranger a little bit, go with him for a while.
All right, there you go. Awesome. Yeah, they love them some Aggies here in San Antonio. I can tell. I know you know that. I know you know that, but yeah, still worth noting. So, all right,
we've got one of our stars, one of our rising stars is a San Antonio girl, Carissa Beckman, who is just a joy to be around. She's a twin, has a twin brother, but really just a super girl. She's someone that we're really, really proud of.
Yeah, I very familiar with her as I coached against her. My team played against her coach when she was back Antonian high school product. So yeah, definitely familiar with her. Great young leader, great athlete. All right, so next one. Last book you read or book you are currently reading?
So I'm a walker. The way I try to get I've got bad knees, and again, aging has not always been kind to us. So I walk a lot. I'll walk between 5 and 14 miles based on whatever the day is. And so a lot of times I like to listen to books. So recently finished Pep's City about Pep Guardiola. I like to listen to a lot of mental skills types of books. So Trevor Moawad, who was a dear friend, and he wrote 2 books. He was one of our original sports mental coaches. He wasn't necessarily a sports psychologist, but he went on to work with Saban, then worked on with Russell Wilson. So he and Russell Wilson collaborated on this last book, and it's basically Getting to Neutral, which is I really highly recommend anyone who is looking for some sort of a mental skills focus type of book. He has 2 books. One's called It Takes What It Takes, and the other one is Getting to Neutral. And Getting to Neutral is actually even better than the first one. Now, Trevor died last year, was a victim of cancer, and a lot of this book is about his fight through cancer treatments, and the whole idea of you can't always have a positive attitude, and it's clear that having a negative attitude is destructive. So getting to neutral and just accepting the truth as the truth prepares you for going forward. So, and then I listen to a lot of John Gordon books, Martin Dugard, historical books are fun. I like oil industry. Being from the state of Texas now, I enjoy a lot of the history about that is interesting. So I have a pretty big library that I listen to and have really enjoyed.
So aside from the 50/50 podcast, are you a podcast listener? Because we know you're a
sometimes, and I have to listen to you guys. I've listened to yours with Lance Key, good friend, and
great guy. Great
also
coach.
with Coach Shaw over at Corpus and some of the others. So I dabble back and forth. If I'm in a book, then I'll stay with the book for a week and a half or so, however long it takes me to walk the streets of College Station to finish a book.
Mm-hmm. Well, glad to hear that you're listening. So we appreciate that. Thank you, Coach.
You bet. I've enjoyed it.
So thank you. This one always ruffles some feathers here. So favorite and least favorite soccer team. Obviously, you can't say Texas A&M women's soccer, but your favorite and any level, but favorite and least favorite soccer team.
So I'm a fan of styles. I'm a fan of coaches. So I'm a big fan of Alex Ferguson and of Richard Hardis. Rich is the goalkeeper coach for Manchester United, and for 10 years worked with us here at Texas A&M in our summer camps. He is still he's the goalkeeper coach currently for the first team at United. So that's the team that I followed because I've had a chance to be at Carrington and be behind the scenes with him and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and some of the rest of the legends that have been there. And then, my least favorite team, my wife's an Aggie. My daughter graduated from Texas A&M. My son's on the football team right now and will graduate in December. So there's a natural rival that we don't mention about our friends in the state capitol. So that would probably be. I've been conditioned to that over the last 30 years. I didn't feel that way growing up, but definitely the last 30 years it's gone that way.
Yeah. All right. I think I might have an idea what you're talking about, but yeah, we'll leave it at that. So
it's not Concordia. I like those guys.
All right. So next one, you are appointed the soccer czar of America. What's first thing you change? Agenda item number 1. First thing you change in soccer in America tomorrow. You could call the shots.
Well, if we're talking about me being the czar of soccer, then we're talking about magical fairies and gnomes and everything else that goes along with it. But I think that the biggest things that need to be fixed, I think greed is something that if we could eliminate greed in soccer, especially in youth soccer, then I think that the people involved in the sport would be much better off. I think that the game itself would be much better off. People talk about the pay to play. Okay, well, you can do that to pay your expenses, but when the expenses become so over the top, that's the problem. And how much is enough? And again, it's something that I'm president of the cavalry here in College Station, and we pride ourselves on being, a quarter of the price of what our peers are around the state. And again, we're a special model for our particular community. And I'm not saying that we do it necessarily better than the rest, but we found a way to survive and keep those costs at least as manageable as possible, and with a lot of fundraising, make it to where we get a chance to really take care of a lot of families as well. So I think it all, follow the money is the problem, is the source of most problems.
Yeah. Well said. So next one, other than Willie Nelson, who would play you in a movie?
Who was the guy? So when I had a full head of hair, who was the actor who played Hans Gruber in Die Hard?
Yeah.
I went on to play Snape in the Harry Potter movies.
Yeah.
If you put a full head of hair on me, that's who I am. So,
for the life of me, I don't know his name because everybody knows
away recently. He was a great humanitarian, great guy.
Yeah.
But my college buddy still will pull up a picture of me with a beard and Hans Gruber with a beard and say, "Oh my God, it's a scary double." So
everybody knows him as Hans Gruber from Die Hard. Everybody, he played such a iconic role. So yeah,
bad guy.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, in 3 words, you can try to summarize it as best you can in 3 words. Why did you become a coach?
To help people.
Perfect.
3 words.
Perfect. All right. Any hidden talents, stuff that most people don't know about you?
Well, I've become a pretty good air traffic controller. one of the things that I wanted to do to help with developing our brand at A&M was to develop a summer camp program that would be desirable for boys and girls from around the state, especially, but it's become across the country and international. And the model, we went from the first year I was here, I think we had 57 kids, and now we've got thousands of kids who come in, and we're sold out for the rest of the summer. So it all works out great. You've got 600 kids here. It works out great when there's no rain, but as soon as there's rain, there's not a place where you can really put 600 kids. You know, we use every blade of grass on the Texas A&M campus for our outdoor stuff. So I've always kind of joked that after they fire me from being the coach at Texas A&M, I'm going to go be an air traffic controller for moving things around. These are over here, these are over here, because most runways you only got like 3 or 4 instead of like 40, like we have to deal with here in the camps. So maybe that's one of my skills.
Okay, speaking of which, camp, that's a camp you have coming up later this week, correct?
We do. We had 2 in June, and then we've got 3 in July, starting the 7th through the 9th, the 9th through the 13th, and the 13th through the 17th. And like I said, they're all sold out. They've been sold out since about April. Really proud of the product that we put out there, the experience that the kids have. We put a lot of time into it. My staff is phenomenal. The coaches that we bring in from all around the country, college coaches, professional coaches, high school coaches, club coaches, are some really, really, really neat people. It's been one of the unexpected joys that I've had is getting to work with a lot of these young coaches. Ahmad Brown, who's our volunteer assistant. I met Ahmad not because he was at the University of Florida, but because he came and worked summer camp with us. And that goes for, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. Mm-hmm. If we have 600 kids in the camp, I've got 125 people on staff each session. So it's about a 9-ring circus going on all the time.
All right. Couple more, coach. So, all right. Would you rather be able to speak every language or talk to animals?
It's funny. We have a vet school. We have top vet school in the world. We laugh that if being a doctor, you only have to speak human languages, but speaking turtle compared to speaking lion compared to speaking horse is a little tougher. So I would love to speak more languages, more human languages. I am notoriously dumb at other languages. As a proud Texan, I speak Texan, and that's about the only thing I speak.
All right. Last one here for you, coach. And you got to be completely objective. You got to be brutally honest here, right? So, scale of 1 to 10, 1 being you're absolutely horrible, a 10 being you are like the standard. How good? What would you rate yourself as a driver?
As a what?
As a driver. Just
I'm a 9.
Vehicle driver.
I'm a 9 for sure. So there's guys in F1 that I can't compete with, but I'm not the guy that you want to get behind to follow, but I can get behind anyone and keep up with them is the way I look at it.
Nice. Yeah. I was about to say, don't tell me you're not the far left lane on the highway with the blinker on for like 4 miles.
That's
you're not that guy.
That's number one pet peeve is people who drive slow in the passing lane. That is, they lane for passing, step back over to the other side. But yeah. And unfortunately, I would say that our state ranks amongst the lower end of people who like to drive in that left lane and drive the rest of us crazy.
No comment. Yeah. No comment. Well, that's going to do it, Coach. This has been exceptional. This has been great. Really want to thank you for your time. But before we go, as customary, we always like to end on some sort of final thoughts, whether they're shout outs, thank yous, what have you, something that's been on your mind, something you'd like to share. We'd like to go ahead and give you kind of share your final thoughts with us as you are our guest.
Well, I mean, Hector, I appreciate you having me on. I think that the only thing I would leave off with, especially if we're talking to coaches and parents of players, is if you put yourself in the shoes of those players, why are they playing? What is it that are they playing because of some financial reason? No, they're not. They're playing because they love the game, and it's fun to play the game. And so, I just try to remind anyone that part of my mission, my personal mission, is to grow women's soccer in the United States, especially at the college level. And a big part of that is for administrators need to hire the right coaches that are going to bring in the right players, that are going to become the right alumni, that are going to help to promote the game and the universe beyond. But it all comes down to, you need to remember that these players, they fell in love with this game when they were itty bitty, and they've stuck with it through all the hard times because they do love the social aspect of it, the physical rewards of it, but more or less just the smiles and being around teammates. So just to try to remember that as you go forward, because you have a lot. You as a coach, you are in a unique position. You have an amazing impact on people, and you want your impact to be positive, that they think of you as with a smile on their face.
Right. Yeah, and that's pretty ironic, because that's pretty close, pretty tied to what I wanted to hit on in my final thoughts. I think that obviously recently in the news, and there's an ongoing ongoing investigation that has been launched regarding a UWS team, a women's team, semi-pro team. And not going to name any names, obviously don't want to speculate, but from the perspective of coaches, but also people in positions of leadership, right? Administrators, what have you. I think it's very important that those of us in the leadership positions is not forgetting and understanding with our staffs that sometimes if we need to take a step back, making sure we're surrounding ourselves with other good leaders and leaders that can help hold us accountable, or when we're having those moments where we need to take a step back. Very important, very close to, very, very close to what you mentioned and what you hit on is we cannot lose sight. And some of this goes back to that soccer czar kind of comment that you mentioned, Coach, is that not forgetting why we do this, right? And it can't if it becomes solely about the money, I think we've lost our way, particularly as coaches, with administrators, people in positions of leadership. So very important.
I think a big part of that, is I think the focus by a lot of people above us in different places are a little off kilter. And again, I run a club here in town. I'm the president of a club. I don't coach the teams, but I try to coach the coaches. And I try to remind them that my goal for every boy in our club is that 3 or 4 of his teammates are going to be in his wedding in 20 years, and not that they're going to get a scholarship someplace, and not that they're going to be picked for the national team. If they're going to be picked for the national team, we can help them with that path. We can help them locally, and then we can put them into contact. If they want to play for MLS Next, we can set them up with opportunities to do that. But the biggest thing is, we want them to love the game so that this becomes a lifetime pursuit, that even when they're old like me and you can't play it anymore, you can still enjoy it, and you can still look at it with positive memories of when you were one of those people in the shorts running around out there. So, I try to remind, we get ahead of ourselves sometimes as coaches, and what we want, and what sometimes is good for our ego, compared to what we really want. I think what I really want is I want these boys or girls to really enjoy this experience and look at this as one of the bright parts of their life. When they look back 50 years from now, what were some of the cool things you had? And almost, if you ask anyone who is a former player, college player, whatever level, they'll always go back to times with their teammates and special times they had after a game or on a trip or something along those lines, instead of, I remember, beating or I remember talking to a college coach about a scholarship. That's not what they're going to remember. They're going to remember what they did with their teammates.
Right.
And so as coaches, we're the ones who hopefully can guide them into a great experience by being in a really good environment.
Absolutely. Well said. And yep, that's going to do it. Coach, thank you. Again, he is Coach G. Guerrieri, the head women's soccer coach of the Texas A&M Aggies. Coach, we wish you, your staff, your squad the absolute best this upcoming season, the 2022 season. Thank you again for your time and for your accessibility. And thank you for all the things you are doing in terms of just growing the game, not far beyond just the brand of A&M and Aggie soccer, but what you're doing in terms of just the game here in this great state of Texas. We thank you for that. Thank you for being on here. For our listeners, for our supporters, again, thank you for your time. We appreciate everything you're doing in support of us. Continue to download, continue to listen to it. Again, you can listen to us on all major podcast platforms. You can also find us on Twitter and Instagram as well. So until the next time, you know what to do. Keep downloading and keep listening. You've been listening to the 50/50 podcast, powered by College Promoters USA. Help us continue to grow by liking, rating, and subscribing on all major podcast platforms. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter at 50_50pod, on Instagram at 50_50 podcast, as well as on YouTube at the 50_50 podcast. Until the next time,